From coming up as the first overall selection in the 2016 NBA draft,
Philadelphia 76ers select Ben Simmons,
to becoming one of the top 3 defenders in his prime, there was a point in time when people genuinely believed that Ben Simmons was going to become the next LeBron James.
But I had an epiphany Saturday morning, and I've thought about it for 2 nights, 3 days. Hey, LeBron, Ben Simmons is here. We're all good.
But as the top comment to that video posted 7 years ago stated, this aged like milk under a hot summer's sun. Because even though the king himself didn't mind the comparisons, it's clear as day that it's the furthest from the truth. What seemed to have been a promising NBA career just a few years ago has now progressed to the Australian native being labeled as a generational bust, and he's generally seen as one of the worst draft picks in NBA history.
And I'm a fan of Ben Simmons. I like him genuinely as a person, but I can't even measure the level of disappointment I have towards him.
It's your boy LaHoopsta, aka Luesta, and today we're gonna be going through the timeline of events that led Ben Simmons to this unfortunate point, as well as finding any possible solution to this disaster. In 2016, the 6'10 Australian had just completed the most impressive freshman campaign in Louisiana State University. Although his team failed to make it to the NCAA tournament, Ben Simmons still averaged an impressive 19 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists per game, establishing himself as a star player and earning the first team All-American. From playing elite defense to being able to drive and dunk without any hesitation, Simmons was a key player for the team and was a major part of the team's success. His insane plays on the court made for an impressive college highlight reel.
Getting a favor, certainly another shoot. He's back there 5 for 15.
Coming again, going to the right hand, gonna get the shooting.
He would immediately become the #1 overall pick for the Philadelphia 76ers, getting chosen over players like Brandon Ingram, Jaylen Brown, and Jamal Murray. And after inking his whopping $26 million deal as a rookie, everyone was convinced that he was the next best. And if we compare his deal to the likes of LeBron or even Magic Johnson, it's clear that the hype for Ben Simmons was beyond anything the league has seen in years. And at the time, this was the highest rookie deal since LeBron came into the league on an $18 million contract. The comparisons with legends wouldn't stop rolling in, as analysts and players all had something to say about his game. 76ers coach Brett Brown claimed that Ben had a hint of Magic Johnson and compared him to a young LeBron James. But in an unfortunate churn of events, Simmons would have to be sidelined for the entire 2016 season after suffering a leg injury during practice. And this was the start of a common theme that would reoccur throughout his entire career. But we'll get into that more later. For now, although injuries are common and can sometimes end careers, it didn't really become a major problem for Simmons, and people were still looking forward to seeing him play the following year. In fact, he was still seen as a fan favorite even before playing his first game. In the eyes of the audience, they believed that if anyone could turn the Sixers into playoff contenders, it would have to be the lockdown dunk machine that is Ben Simmons, or so they thought. The year is 2017, and after months of anticipation, it was finally time for Ben Simmons to show the city of Philadelphia why he was worth the wait. Making his long-awaited debut against the Washington Wizards, the young star stepped onto the court with nearly 21,000 fans at the Wells Fargo Center watching his every move. And while the Sixers came up short in a close 115-120 loss, Simmons made it clear he belonged, finishing with 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. It wasn't just a strong debut, it was a promise, and a clear-cut sign that the next chapter of Philly basketball had arrived. And even the legends who came before him could tell that Ben Simmons wasn't just another draft pick, he was something else entirely.
It's in a decade, maybe once in a lifetime type player, able to make everybody better. He's got that head up, he's looking at all times. I mean, sometimes it looks like he's got eyes in the back of his head.
He's right, this kid is special. I remember playing against him in the preseason, the first time I saw him, and I was just like, okay. Like, I didn't know they made any more of these. You know, he's got that LeBron size, he's 6'9", he's got the vision. Doctor said it best, he makes everybody around him better. He doesn't take any possessions off.
While his debut against the Wizards was statistically impressive in terms of points and assists, his next game against the Celtics would further highlight his rebounding ability. ultimately showcasing his potential. In the 2017-2018 season, the 76ers won more games than they ever have in any season before they picked up Ben Simmons. But unfortunately, the narrative around Simmons would suddenly change when he faced the man he was constantly getting compared to, LeBron James, who was coming off his historic 2016 Finals comeback versus the Warriors. During the game, King James put up 30 points, while Simmons barely managed to score 10. However, getting obliterated by a man who's widely debated as the greatest to ever do it was the least of his worries. Because during that game, the Sixers not only ended the game in a disappointing 113-91 loss, but to make matters worse, Ben Simmons also sprained his right ankle, which was a sign of many battles to come. Luckily for Simmons, he was able to return to play and help the 76ers finish third in the East alongside elite center Joel Embiid and the experienced veteran now turned head coach JJ Redick. They managed to score 52 solid wins, which is the most wins the franchise had gotten in 17 years, earning Ben Simmons a Rookie of the Year award. But this wasn't just a win for Ben Simmons, it was a win for the entire city of Philadelphia, because after years of being the NBA's laughingstock, the Sixers were finally back in business. And for fans who have been chanting one phrase for half a decade, it finally felt like that blind faith had paid off. Trust the process. That phrase became the battle cry of a painful but intentional rebuild that started all the way back in 2013 under then GM Sam Hinkie. The plan involved stripping the roster, stockpiling draft picks, and eating the losses now so they could feast on wins later. It was controversial, even called unethical by some. The Sixers were tanking on purpose and everyone knew it. But in return, they landed franchise-changing players like Joel Embiid in 2014 and Simmons in 2016. So when the Sixers landed 52 wins and made the playoffs for the first time in 6 years, it felt like the process had finally reached its payoff. Ben Simmons wasn't just a rookie, he was the crown jewel of the rebuild. And for a brief moment, the city believed that they had their next superstar. Every respected voice in the NBA was completely aboard the Ben Simmons train, especially Colin Cowherd, who was convinced Ben was the man.
I woke up and I wondered when Ben Simmons was playing. And I am more interested in watching Ben Simmons tomorrow night than I am watching LeBron tonight. But for the first time in 10 to 12 years, I look at the NBA, which I've watched for 4 decades, and I say this now with Ben Simmons. Hey, LeBron, we're good, bro. You can go. You don't have to. You can hang around. Still great, but you can go. We're all good here.
Looking at it now, this was such a crazy take, considering LeBron was at the peak of his career at the time with 3 NBA championships. And even when Philly reporters asked LeBron about the comparisons, he seemed a bit uncomfortable talking about it.
LeBron, how would you describe your relationship with Ben Simmons? I know you guys worked out together and did some things together in the offseason.
What do you mean?
Just like, how often do you talk to him, or what kind of advice?
We got a great relationship.
LeBron, what have been your impressions of how Ben's playing so far this season?
It's been great.
When you look at his potential, what comparisons do you think might be valid that people make to your game, and what similarities do you maybe not see between the two?
I don't know. I mean, that's for you. That's you guys. You guys do that comparison stuff. I think Ben is his own makeup of speed, power, quickness, ability to pass the ball, ability to have a feel for the game. And Ben is Ben, and I am who I am, and so on and so on. So you guys kind of do that comparison stuff.
However, these remarks by Colin wouldn't age well. Although it was common knowledge that Simmons was phenomenal with ball control and super sharp passes, one thing he wouldn't do was shoot the ball. Literally. These days, the phrase "just shoot the ball" and Simmons are synonymous. And you can find entire compilations on YouTube showcasing all the times he gave up extremely open shots.
And here's Simmons coming up with a turnover.
Great
anticipation. Look at that, look at that. Oh, what a play by Simmons! I didn't think I'd get that excited in a preseason game.
Good instincts. See right there, no one's playing him. Well, let me free up this opportunity for myself. Gets it back off the board. Finds a streaky Markelle along the baseline. That's just smart basketball.
And this honestly became a major obstacle for him to overcome. But some members of the NBA community never thought it was absolutely necessary for him to score 3-pointers. Once again, comparing him to LeBron James. Or this comment with 2,800 likes, who claimed that he seems like he's allergic to scoring. And to be honest, this looked like a good style of play when paired with other shooters. But in situations where the only reasonable play was to aim for the basket, Simmons would completely back down.
There's Simmons. LeBron just playing free safety, laying back in the key.
Well, he knows that he's not going to take the shot. So.
As they say, you miss every shot you don't take, and that was definitely the case with Ben Simmons. Although Sixers fans still supported him and hyped him up at every attempt he made at taking a jump shot.
Screen, definitely. Nobody argued about it. Ben Simmons took a three, and you could hear the fans kind of rise up.
This would continue to be a problem in his seemingly notorious track record, and as fans tried to make sense of someone who once looked confident in college was now passing up open shots, what became clear was that he was giving up open looks, not because he was trying to create for his teammates, but because he just couldn't make the shots anymore.
Looked like Alfred from the beginning of the year. Simmons,
for Thomas Bryant, keeping him on the perimeter to pull.
And this is going to take us to the end of the first half. Simmons.
And that'll end. Simmons gets it back, fires it.
To some renowned sports analysts, the Sixers would become nearly unstoppable if Simmons figured out how to make his shot better.
If Simmons could shoot, I'd like Philadelphia to get out of the Eastern Conference, but he can't, and he doesn't. And forget about a three-point shot for a second. If Simmons just shot a mid-range, he'd be impossible, but he doesn't. Everything comes in the paint. And nevertheless, he's a great player, a legitimately great player. I thought he was the best defender in the league last year when he was healthy, up to the point he got hurt. I thought he was the defensive player of the year. He's 6'10", guys, and he's a great defender, an energetic defender. And on offense, he's created more open looks from three than anyone since he entered the league. That's actually a fact. And he can do everything except shoot. If he adds a shot to his game, how do you stop Philadelphia?
At this point, the fans were convinced that the only thing holding Ben Simmons back from replacing LeBron James was learning how to take a jump shot.
I'm a huge fan of Ben Simmons. I think he's a jump shot away from being LeBron James Part 2.
It's a damn shame he hasn't worked on his jump shot because it's the only thing he's lacking.
One funny little fact is that you can count how many career three-pointers Ben Simmons has on one hand. After the season, it seemed like all the criticism was actually beneficial, as Ben Simmons would be seen posting videos of himself making three-point shots in the gym. And everyone was looking forward to Ben Simmons making the greatest comeback of his career.
I'm going to believe that Ben Simmons been working on his shot.
yes, he's got to get a jump shot, and he will. And I think he worked hard this summer already. I think he's going to come back and shock everybody.
In the 2020-2021 season, it was finally time to put his training to good use. But sadly, his shots were just as dookie as when he got drafted, with multiple teams baiting him to shoot from the three-point line.
Simmons surveying out front. LeBron laying all the way back in the key, daring him to shoot. Simmons does.
And sure enough, when he couldn't hit from the field, Simmons began driving to the paint. But unfortunately for him, they would constantly foul him, sending him to the line to shoot free throws, leading to a horrible free throw percentage. During the first round of the playoffs, in a tight game against the Washington Wizards, the Wizards looked to take advantage of Simmons' inability to make a shot, as this was their only chance to stay alive in the series.
Baby in there, 2-point Washington lead.
And look at the slow walk for Ben Simmons, because until he starts knocking these down consistently, well, you're going to see this.
This has been done.
His shooting was so bad that he even got a hilarious award at the ESPYs. Now, they ended up winning the series regardless, with a triple-double closeout from Ben Simmons in Game 5, which showed that he wasn't letting the hate get to him. However, this attack on Simmons' offense would only get worse in the second round of the playoffs during a showdown against the Atlanta Hawks. And this is where the last image of Simmons in a Sixers uniform is taken, when he would pass up an easy dunk on Trae Young to a cutting Matisse Thybulle, who was eventually fouled.
Simmons, they cleared out for him. Backing his way in. Spins on Gallinari. Gives it up. Oh, he was right there. And a foul as Thybulle goes to the basket.
At this point, even his coach Doc Rivers would not be so sure about Simmons' ability to carry on with the team.
Ben Simmons can still be a point guard for a championship team like the one you guys want to become.
Yeah, David, I don't know that question or the answer to that right now. So I don't know the answer to that.
To make matters even worse, Simmons would begin having issues with the entire Sixers organization, all because of this game, and the coach's comments as well. He basically wanted out after being treated badly because of his underwhelming playoff performance and his failure to step up in big moments. The main issue was that everyone felt like he was playing way below his $22 million rookie contract. Instead of putting his head down and grinding to get better, he began missing training sessions and missing pregame seasons, saying that he would never play for the Sixers ever again.
Philadelphia 76ers point guard Ben Simmons has made it clear he will not report to the opening of training camp next week and intends to never, ever play for the 76ers franchise again. This, according to ESPN's very own Adrian Wojnarowski, insider extraordinaire, of course. You've got to be kidding me. Ben Simmons is out here making demands. Ben Simmons, the guy who scored 5 points in Game 7 of an Eastern Conference semifinals, passing up an easy dunk. The guy who hasn't bothered to develop a jump shot in 5 years since he's been drafted. Or a free throw, by the way, a free throw shot. The guy who hasn't bothered to put in enough work to even scratch his potential on the court. That guy is out here telling the 76ers how things are gonna be.
Eventually, Simmons earned himself a $17 million fine, which made him the most fined player in NBA history. One thing that was for sure is that if Sixers wanted a chance at a championship, Ben Simmons did not seem capable of being the one to take them there. Simmons, as well as the Sixers, would eventually get tired of trying to make things work, which led him to demanding a trade after just 5 seasons with the team.
Let me be very, very clear. Ben Simmons looks very, very weak in this whole argument because you want to leave after you messed up.
However, despite his obviously lackluster performance during his time on the team, the Sixers were still not going to trade just anyone for Simmons. They wanted real value in return. Eventually, they would trade Ben Simmons to the Brooklyn Nets in exchange for James Harden. And when he finally arrived to the Nets, his fear of shooting wasn't the only thing to set him back, because this time, it was a ghost from his past that no one expected. The very first Ben Simmons Nets season was basically non-existent, as he would miss the entire year because of a knee injury. By the time the next season arrived, Ben seemed ready to give the Nets exactly what they paid for, and reflected on his mental state going into the 2022-2023 season.
Being able to do that, that was the start of, getting to where I'm at now. I'm like in a great place and I feel comfortable talking about it now. But those are some dark days for me. And especially, everything's public. Like, that's the crazier part. But yeah, it's something that's like everyone goes through different struggles, some bigger than others. But yeah, it's everyone, has their own battles. And I think that was tough for me, just knowing like I didn't really have that support either from teammates or whatever it was at that time.
No, call it like it is. Let's call it like it is.
Yeah.
And you know that I love Joel and you know that I love Doc. But like they essentially threw you under the bus after Game 7.
On top of this, Simmons also reassured everyone that he was at the peak of his condition as an athlete thus far and was ready to play a good game.
Do you have reservations about this season, about your own physical ability, about your own ability to play, or because you have this like foundation, I'm good?
No, I'll be great, and I'm excited to play with Kev, Kai, Joe, all those guys. Like, we just have an unbelievable team, and I know it. Like, for me, after surgery, I knew it was going to take to get back to where I need to be, and I've been locked in. It's been tough. Like, obviously, no rehab is easy, but it's a grind, and that's what it's all about for me. Like, that's my mini season. Every time I've had a situation where I've been hurt or whatever it is, that's my time to lock in and focus and get to where I need to be.
Because of statements like this, what remained left of his declining fan base had high hopes that he would completely crush the season, considering he's basically getting a fresh start after resting for a long while, and the fact that he would be playing alongside elite shooters such as KD and Kyrie. But all of that would change during his debut game with the Nets against his old teammates.
Simmons on the attack. Couldn't get it to drop.
To go there and about being unafraid to be in this position at this point. And that's
fans who are here in the building booing as Simmons misses both free throws.
Ben Simmons would end the preseason game against the Sixers with 6 points, 4 rebounds, and 5 assists, which is a far cry from his earlier Sixers debut. While some fans were happy to have him back, other members of the NBA community straight up called him a fraud who steals money from teams only to end up playing like trash. However, Simmons seemed unshaken by these comments, informing the public that he was happy to be back in the game.
Felt so good to be back. I'm just grateful and blessed to be back here on the floor and playing with these guys, so I'm happy.
But things would get even worse for Simmons, as he kicked off the season with sore knees, which eventually reopened his back injury and caused him to sit out half of the games. To make matters worse, he also ended the season with career lows in points, assists, and rebounds per game, along with 97 total turnovers, 139 fouls, and 291 points in just 42 games, further solidifying his title as a generational scammer in the eyes of many. Now, although his season got cut short due to injuries, it was still not a good reason to put up such diabolical stats, especially when he got traded for a superstar like James Harden, who was doing considerably well for the Nets before being traded. As a matter of fact, when the trade initially happened, a lot of basketball fans weren't fully on board with the idea.
It's been interesting to listen to the NBA world react to this trade. James Harden has 2 30-point triple-doubles in the last 3 weeks. We haven't seen Ben on a basketball court in 8 months.
During his time off, Ben would once again start posting videos of himself making multiple three-point shots. But this time, the fans would completely call out his bullshit. Nope, not falling for it. Not this again. We are not falling for this again. If that man can do that on practice, tell him to suit up and do it on the court, and then maybe I'll believe it. And just like fans predicted, his return for the 2023-2024 season was a complete disaster, with his nerve impingement that resurfaced after a game against the Bucks in November. It would eventually need surgical attention, causing him to get yeeted back to the bench for the entire season. Once again, drumming up criticism from everyone.
Who are the NBA players, no matter the age, that you would legitimately buy a ticket for to go watch because you find them entertaining?
Ben Simmons, because I would want to learn how you can make $80 million and play 55 games. Teach me how you can play 55 games in 3 seasons and get 30 million, 40 million, and get another 40 million just by saying your back hurt. Get some icy hot, man up.
When Simmons finally recovered, it seemed like he was for sure ready to get back to being the star that everyone was hoping to see 8 years ago. And soon, he was recording his first ever triple-double with the Nets, hitting 10 points, 10 rebounds, and 11 assists. But sadly, this improvement wouldn't last very long, as he would later become a flat-out liability to the team. Even his coach, Jack Vaughn, would have a hard time finding the right spot for Ben Simmons.
You put another big next to Ben, then you got to figure out what the spacing is around him. Then if you put a playmaker next to him, then you got to figure out what Ben looks like without the basketball. Then if you go small with Ben, then you got to figure out, can you rebound enough with him? All right, so the challenges are ahead of us. We'll look them head on. We'll figure it out. We have the personnel to figure it out. Whether it is me mixing and matching throughout different pieces of the game and allowing him to have a group and run with a group, that part we'll figure out.
In reality, it just seemed like Simmons didn't want to be out there for some odd reason, and the Nets eventually had to shut him down, giving him another chance to heal. Ben will not be joining us for the rest of the year and through the playoffs. After consulting with our doctors, multiple specialists, he's just going to begin a rehab program. Now, you can't completely blame Simmons due to his several injuries. After all, he truly just joins a long list of NBA stars whose time in the league was cut short due to constantly getting unfortunate injuries. But as someone who is considered to be the next LeBron James, a player who has somehow managed to avoid any career-threatening injuries in the entire 2 decades plus as a pro player, we can't say his time in the court was anything special, or that he even slightly compared to the height that he had entering the NBA. From the outside looking in, it appears that when he's healthy, he refuses to put in work that's needed to improve as a player, and chances are, his training videos were just for show. If he was indeed grinding as much as he made people think, then his problem might be something way deeper.
I can't tell a guy if a guy's hurt. He knows his body. Yeah. But I still believe Ben is dealing with this thing mentally.
Likewise, unfortunately. Again, to your point, Rookie of the Year, 3 straight All-Star teams, 2 straight first-team All-Defenses.
From the constant comparisons to LeBron to his teammates abandoning him in Philly.
Are you disappointed that he hasn't bought back in yet at this point with the way he...
At this point, I don't care about that man, honestly. He does whatever he wants. That's not my job. That's those guys' jobs. I'm only focused on trying to make the team better, win some games, play hard every night, try to lead, the guys that we have here, and I'm sure they feel the same way because, our chemistry has been excellent. Despite everything that's been happening the last few months, like I said, I don't really care.
It seems like Simmons was always fighting battles throughout his career, and even now, some believe it was all the pressure that led him to his repeated failures. Forced to make a decision, the Brooklyn Nets would cut their losses with Simmons, buying out his contract and passing him over to the LA Clippers. But after averaging 3 points in 18 games, it's hard for fans to imagine Ben Simmons going anywhere but the Guangdong Tigers come next season. But truthfully, it doesn't have to be this way. Because despite all the memes, the boos, and the media slander, Ben Simmons is still just 27 years old. That's younger than Nikola Jokic, younger than Giannis when he won his first ring. And let's not forget, when fully healthy, Simmons was never just a role player. He was a 6'10" defensive anchor who could guard all 5 positions and make teammates better without even needing the ball to score 30. Well, he doesn't need to shoot threes like Steph, but he does need a reliable mid-range jumper. Even Giannis, with his flaws, worked until he could at least keep defenders honest. He doesn't need to become the next LeBron. He just needs to become the Ben Simmons we all caught glimpses of. Not in a practice video, not in an empty gym, but in real games, under real pressure when it actually counts. And if he's serious, if he's willing to shut out the noise, humble himself, and put in the work behind the scenes, then this comeback story could still be written.
Felt so good to be back. I'm just grateful and blessed to be back here on the floor and playing with these guys, so I'm happy.